Allahu Akbar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Sayyidina wa nabiyina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. My brothers and sisters in Islam, it is very difficult to follow up. Our brother Safi has gave us a wonderful reminder. Inshallah, I will do my best to remind myself before everyone here. As you know, the theme of this conference is Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is our example. He is the one that we should emulate without any reservation. So we're talking today about verbal abuse. Did the Prophet ﷺ ever abuse his wives? Although he was angry with them sometimes, to the extent that he avoided them for a while. But there is no any documents, weak or strong hadith, telling us that the Prophet ﷺ ever abused one of his wives. As we know again, that the core of Islam is what? Who can help me? What the main message of Islam? وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. That is Rahmah. Rahmah is the core teaching of Islam. All Islam, the teaching of Islam is about Rahmah. Verbal abuse and all kinds of abuses is contradict to the Rahmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. In order to sustain these divine institutions, as our brother at the very beginning mentioned, that the marriage is a divine institution. It is a divine institution, as it is the first social institutions is ever established on the earth. So we find that Prophet ﷺ, who is our example to follow, never abused one of his wives. He made a profound statement about those who have a high moral, high character. And he said, لا يكرمهن إلا الكريم ولا يهينهن إلا الدائم. Those who respect and value their wives, those are the people who have high morality. And those who disgrace them and disrespect them have low characters. They are means. My brothers and sisters in Islam, we have different types of abuses. We have verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, religious abuse, and social abuse. But we are going to talk about only the verbal abuse. Physical abuse, all of us, we know physical abuse. In this country, maybe social abuse may take you to the jail sometimes. We have emotional abuse. Threaten your wife or spouse with divorce. And the different types of emotional abuse, my brothers and sisters in Islam. We have religious abuse. Threatening your wife all the time, reminding her, you will go to hellfire. You don't listen to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if I have to command someone to make sujood for anyone else, I could have commanded a wife to make sajda for her husband. Religious abuse, we have it. Social abuse. You don't want to take your spouse with you to dinner when you are invited, gathering, and so and so and so on. Financial abuse, you are stingy. Financial abuse, stingy, you don't give enough money to your wife while you have it. If you don't have it, it's a different story. So all these things, all these kinds of abuses are prohibited in our Islam, and they are against the main core of Islam and Rahmah. My brothers and sisters in Islam, why people abuses their spouses? We should not undermine the power of this tongue. This tongue sometimes is more powerful and sharper than knives. This tongue can kill, and this tongue can revive someone. We should be very, very careful of what we say and to our spouses. This verbal abuse or any type of abuse has no limits. What I mean by that? I mean that imams abuse, doctors abuse, engineers abuse, layman Muslims abuse, even family therapists abuse. Everybody do it. Everyone abuse, except those who have a high moral, who really stick to the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the teaching of the Quran. People abuse, my brothers and sisters in Islam, is humiliation for your wife or your husband, because you have spouses abuse one another. Wife can abuse his wife, the wife can abuse her husband. In both is a type of humiliation, disrespectful to one another. So, my brothers and sisters in Islam, what sustains the marriage is mawadda and rahmah. Anything that will lead to opposite of mawadda and rahmah, we have to avoid it, and one of those things is abuse, verbal abuse. I'm working with Muslim Family Services for about 12 years. I can classify our community into 3 or 4 classifications according to our experience in our office. We know those who verbally abuse their wife more than the others. We know who physically abuse their wives, and emotional, social, and financial. We have all this record in our office. But we are not going to point out our fingers to any ethnic and a group, and all the Muslims doing it. So my brothers and sisters in Islam, people abuse their wives verbally, sometimes in order to control them. When you are in the state of abuse, you feel humiliated, you feel insignificant in the marriage. So what you're supposed to do when you find yourself in an abusive relationship, and this is the man or the woman, and that you were dreaming to be a partner of your life, and now you find the person and that you married to is abusive. I think you will be in bad situation. So what you supposed to do? Number one, there are some suggestions from the aspects. When I'm talking about the aspects, I'm talking about the family therapies. There are some suggestions. Number one, give up on the idea of trying to change him or her. Don't try to do that. Trying to understand why he or she is in the way that he is. Perhaps the character that he's demonstrating before you was grounded in his upbringing. If that is the case, trying to talk to him calmly. You have to take high road because you want the marriage to work. You have to give up many things. You have to advise him calmly. Please, can you seek a help? Either if the wife, she's the one who's abusive, the husband would tell her that. If the husband is the abusive, she should tell him that. But usually those who abuse, they don't see themselves as abusive. And then he will tell you, no, I don't need to see a family therapist. You are the one who need it. Right? But don't try to say that and I will change him. You cannot change him if the change is not coming from him himself. He himself has to take initiative for changes if he realizes. But most of the time they don't. Those who abuse, they don't realize that. Number two, never match your own verbal abuse to his. Don't do that. If you are the sister who are in an abusive relationship, don't say, well, I abuse you, but not like you do. Don't do that. Don't try to match it. He will tell you that you are the irrational one. You are the one who causes me to do all these kind of things. Don't do that. Rather, trying all the time to take high road, to trying your best to make the marriage work. You have to set yourself a limit. Everything has a limit. A time will come, you cannot take it anymore. But at that time, you have to think, you have to start thinking about an alternative. Am I going to stay in this relationship? Or what should I do? And I think our brother Dawood is going to talk about that. I hear the topics of his speech. So you have to start thinking seriously about the relationship. If you exhausted all the means, and then you have to set self-time for yourself, whether or not you continue the relationship or not. And also, my brothers and sisters in Islam, those who abuse their wives, they want to exclude, they don't want their wife to associate themselves with the others. They're trying to cut them off of their friends. Don't accept that. Continue your relationship with your friends and your family, seeking advice from your own friends, your own imams, your family therapists. Do your best, try your best up to the end. When this verbal abuse leads to physical abuse, and then you said you have to stop here. You have to stop here. Although people all the time criticizing our office, and that sometimes we call the husband and telling him, if you abuse her again physically, we will make a report to the police, because that's the only thing can and help her. Sometimes we do it. If the physical abuse is so bad, and this lady, she doesn't have anybody. Okay. Minutes, 2 more minutes. Inshallah. So my brothers and sisters in Islam, my time is already over. But what I would like to remind all of us, my brothers and sisters in Islam, the core of the teaching of Islam is Rahman, is verbal abuse, physical abuse, any type of abuse is against the core of teaching of Islam. And Prophet ﷺ told us that among you who have a very good moral character are those who respect their spouses. So don't be among those who have a low characters, those who abuses their spouses. They disrespect their spouses. If you need help, if your wife or your husband tell you that you need help, please try to go and seek assistance from the professionals, from your imams. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will bring good between all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.